Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Bye-bye.
I remember that show.
And welcome back to what I'm calling the Family Law Show today. We have David Halkett, partner at McQuarrie Hunter, and Sarah Morse, associate at McQuarrie Hunter in Surrey, Central Surrey, in the towers there. And you're in today talking for the first show, and we're going to be doing a new one in the new year, basically about division of assets. And we've talked about, what you bring in and what you're allowed to take out. What's an unequal division of family property? What does that mean?
Well, that means that one party gets more than 50% of the family property.
How's that decided?
There's a number of factors. You can look at how long the relationship was. Do you have any agreements that said that one would get an unequal amount? You can also look at whether or not you've contributed to the other's career. Like sometimes, you've always heard the story that I put him through law school or dental school or whatever, and then
they always take the law school out. Do you see the way the lawyers switched it to medical school?
Yeah, exactly. That's the way it's got to be. And so then you separate it after. So you gave up potentially something for yourself,
especially if they're a good paying job. Yeah,
exactly. You can also look at what the debts are. Did one person unreasonably run up debt? Mm-hmm. Like we talked earlier today about dividing debt. Doesn't matter really who incurs it, it's family debt. But if one had an issue that ran up debts like gambling debts or whatever and ran up credit cards through the roof and there was no benefit to it, that may be a factor to say it would be significantly unfair to say that this person should pay half the debt when it was for an addiction issue, potentially.
And what are the percentages you've seen? How far have you seen them move from 50-50 to 80-20, 90-10?
It's very discretionary.
Mm-hmm.
So it good rule of thumb, usually it's 2/3, 1/3, maybe 70-30, but I've seen it as high as 90-10. And sometimes if someone hasn't been paying any support whatsoever, for whatever reason, the payor is the quote unquote deadbeat, you may get the entire half given to the other side as in effect because you're not going to get support.
So do you come across cases where there is one person that works hard and then you've got the other person is just a deadbeat, just sucks money out of the family, doesn't do anything? Do you get that?
Oh, more often than I'm sure we would like to, because it does make it a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the actual divorce is harder. So sometimes do they think they're better to stay in it and have access to all of the money versus half of it?
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people, that's a consideration for a lot of people when deciding whether to end a relationship is once they realize how they have to deal with their assets and their debt and two households, that can be a big factor in deciding whether or not people are going to separate.
Especially if you're factoring in support. I remember a number of years ago I had someone come in to see me, and I never saw the guy again, but he came in to see me, and he said, what am I looking at potentially in child and spousal? I plugged in the numbers, length of relationship, his income, and I told him, and he almost turned like a ghost, and I thought I was going to have to call for a defibrillator when he goes, I never heard from the guy again, because you don't realize sometimes the decisions you make while you're together, that, I want my wife or my husband to stay home and take care of the children, can have a financial effect down the road on two matters. One is that you have to pay support because the person needs compensation. Second is the person can't get a job that's going to pay them enough because they've been out of the workforce so long. Mm-hmm. So, there's times that I'm sure people come in to see us, and same with you, Sarah, that you give them the advice and you don't see them again, and they realize that marriage counseling is cheaper than
spousal support.
Yeah.
Realistically.
That's the way it is.
And the gender issue, is it typically men, we've always heard, pay more than women, or is this is the scales of justice supposed to be blind here?
No.
Well, they are blind insofar as it always seems that the one with the higher income will pay, and that's the way our system is. Except why it looks worse is that still men tend to make more than the
we're
wives
seeing
do.
a lot of this going through law school, and of course doctors, because you just referenced the the professional colleges are filled with women now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's definitely changing. You're starting to see more and more of a shift of either equal contributions to a marriage, but there's still the majority of cases we see tend to be a bit older.
Yeah,
I would say, and so I still have a lot of cases where you have the sort of the typical mom who stayed home, raised the kids in their mid-50s. Very little, if any, qualifications, no computer skills and things like that. And that's a decision they made 25 years ago to do that. And it's difficult for both sides financially and has a real impact on how they're going to move forward.
It'll be interesting in a number of years when a lot of the younger, early 30s, mid 30s professionals where the wives do make more are starting to separate.
Whether that will change, sort of spousal and
because I see some stay-at-home dads pushing strollers around.
More and more of that.
Which is great. And actually, you see it in advertising now.
Yeah.
You even see like Tide commercials with the stay-at-home dad. Yeah. I mean, society is changing.
Yeah, and it always you would think that when in the old days when you saw a guy with a kid at the park, oh, he's not working today. This is his day to just take care of his kid. Whereas sometimes they are the stay-at-home. So my experience is that it is a little bit harder for a stay-at-home dad to get spousal than a stay-at-home mom is. Only insofar as often the judges tend to be a little bit older, so they may be more old school. So it's a new thing for them.
That too will change as decades
Exactly.
go by.
So it may be a little more difficult for a guy to seek spousal, but at the same time, a lot of guys don't want to seek spousal.
So have you seen that in the last 2 decades that you've been doing this, going to court, where say you had judges who were in their late 50s and 60s then, who would now be in their 80s, and the ones that are in their 50s and 60s now were in their 30s and 40s when you started, like their attitudes maybe. Are judges' attitudes changing? Oh,
yeah, for sure. They, as I said, when I first started, basically, if the wife would show up, if she made less, she was going to get spousal. Now they have to prove they're entitled to it. Things have changed. Although when you said 2 decades, it made me feel really old the way it just kind of slid out there.
I'll tell you something. I've been doing broadcasting for 3 decades.
Yeah, no,
I'm feeling old.
Time just flies. But certainly it is different than when I started. Like when Sarah started this, it was a lot more. We're just who cares who's asking for it? They get it based on the same formulas.
Now, Sarah, of the, say, 3 main things, money, children, and I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember what the third one is.
I said sexual issues.
Sexual issues, right. Which is the hardest to resolve? Is it the children or the money?
I would like to say children, and I think it truly is children, because that often involves money as well if there's support being paid, so it kind of hits both of those. Financial can be a huge one, but what the financial comes down to a lot of times is just a number that's palatable to both parties, whereas the children, there's nothing palatable about it typically. It's, I want them more of the time. Well, I want them more of the time. And what's best for the kids is very hard to figure out because it's so subjective.
When I started, usually men got every second weekend. They were the Friday to Sunday every second weekend. And if you got that, you should be happy with it. That was, guys were happy they got joint guardianship for a bit where they actually had a say, right? But now, of course, a lot of dads were very involved and we do quite a bit of childcare and child rearing ourselves. So we want to have our time with the children. But there's still, as old school as it is, a bit of a view out in the world that if a mom doesn't have the kids more than half the time, it's got to be because she's a bad mom. Even though that's not the case, and the dad, if a dad gets less than half time, no one thinks anything.
But it could also be, like we talked, women are shattering those glass ceilings and having bigger and bigger jobs, and you might have a woman who's a C-suite executive who travels all the time.
Oh, for sure.
Doesn't make her less of a mom. It's just she's like, nobody thinks anything of a dad jumping on a plane and being gone for a week on a business trip. But a mom gone for a week, it's different. You know this, right?
I do, yeah. It's
for sure.
I'm definitely in that sort of modern category, and I am in a different situation than a lot of other people.
Oh, for sure. And it is changing so much that, often when I first started, I never had the wife with more money. Now, maybe a third of the cases do.
All right, we're right up against the clock, and I just wanted to thank you both, first of all, for coming in. And David, I'll defer to you on this one. Last piece of advice, somebody's listening to this, thinking about it, knows somebody, maybe has a daughter or son that is going through this.
You give us a call, come in, know your rights before you make any decisions.
And the best way to find McQuarrie Hunter?
McQuarrie.com.
McQuarrie.com. All right. Thank you very much. That's David Halkett, you heard there, who's a partner at McQuarrie Hunter, and Sarah Morse. Nice to have you back. It's been a little while. Nice to see you.
Yes, thank you for having us.
And it's great to have you here on what I'm calling now the Family Law Show. Actually, it's called The Law Show. You've taken that over for this hour anyway.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we have. I'm Zach Spencer. I'll speak to you next time on CL 650.